Welcome to Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast. I'm Tina Emerson, alongside Tom Brinkley today. He is an economic development attorney here in our Birmingham, Alabama office. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you, Tina. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. We have got two seasoned Alabama economic development professionals here with us today, Valerie Gray and Lori Huguley. Thank you both for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, we hear that you have both become recent new business owners in a company called VaLor Strategies. So tell us about your new venture.
I'm excited to partner with Valerie, one of the best economic developers, I think, in the state of Alabama. We've been friends and colleagues since about 2005 when I got involved with economic development. And we became friends and colleagues and decided that when we realized that our retirement plans kind of aligned, we always talked about doing something together. And so as the time drew nearer, we realized that there was a need in Alabama and as well as the Southeast for a consultancy firm that is able to provide services with our combined strengths, which are in economic development, organizational management, government relations, and compliance.
Yeah, Lori's right. We knew her position and my position were vastly different. Hers coming from municipal and mine coming from rural county regional. And we just thought that the timing for us aligned perfectly, where the milestones in our lives with our children, with our people graduating, marriage, things like that. And retirement just lined up perfectly. So together, she and I thought we could bring our different strategies and our different strengths actually to help other communities in Alabama and the Southeast.
So you all have been doing economic development for a long time. We're not going to get into how long the three of us have been doing economic development, right? But it's exciting to think about you all having a new chapter and another, runway that you're going to start. And I'm excited to hear more about that. You've won many awards between you two. I want to mention you both won the Dave Eccles Award, which is the highest award we give in the state of Alabama. So you're going to make a powerful duo. We've got a lot of young people coming into economic development now that really are new to economic development in general. What advice would you give young economic developers who are starting their profession in this field?
I think every year that I would attend like EDAA, the winter conference or the summer conference, there was always people that I didn't know. And I would have to ask around, who is that? Who is that? And it's great to see so many young professionals coming up in economic development. To me, building your network is critical. Building your network to launch your career and to figure out who you can build in that network, whether it be private sector, public sector, utility providers. Just knowing people in every different realm of professional and executive leadership helps you become a well-rounded person. I will mention one thing that I did. There are education steps for becoming an economic developer. Well, one thing that I did uniquely in Chambers County is every person in my office for the last 25 years has been a resident of Chambers County, and we can train them. And you can train them to sell your county or your community in marketing, because economic development is such a vast network of professionals.
So besides networking, what are some of the soft skills that you think a young economic developer might need to work a project effectively these days?
I think one of the most important things, and I know Valerie did this with her group and I did it with mine, is being a team player. I mean, you have to be able to, pivot if something comes up when you're working a project and maybe something doesn't go the way you had planned, but you need to be able to adjust on the fly. I think people that have that openness and are able to make changes as needed and just be a team player, do whatever's required. I know one time we had a project that was coming to town to look at an existing building, and there was trash. It was a private property, but me and my group went out there and we were picking up trash to make sure that it showed well for when the prospect came in to look at it. So just got to be able to do what's required.
Well, Lori, you've certainly left Opelika in good hands with John Sweatman and his team, and Valerie, you've done the same with Chris Busby and his team. So we're excited about all that they have going on going forward. All right, so let's talk a little bit about economic development in the industries and sectors that you all are seeing. You know, a lot has changed over the years. We kind of started, automotive was everything. And that's been, you know, some time, and it's still very important. But what other industries and sectors are you all seeing looking forward that you're most excited about in Alabama? I'll start with you, Lori.
Sure. I mean, I think that the Southeast has been very strong recently with the locations of like some of these big data centers, battery manufacturing, chemical operations. I think the automotive and aerospace industry in the Southeast is going to continue to be strong. I know regionally for Valerie and I, we've been very fortunate to have success in the automotive sector. So we've seen that regionally, the automotive sector, but also we've been very fortunate in our areas about food and beverage manufacturing and also the appliance manufacturing. So I think that we're going to continue to see those type of industries. And I think the Southeast is going to continue to be strong for several different reasons. I think, you know, one of the major hot buttons right now for some of these large projects are power availability. Also the lower cost to serve. I think in Alabama specifically, we offer, because of our community college system, we are very able to provide a trained workforce. And I think you'll continue to see the Southeast grow because of the proximity to customers. I think the Southeast is one of the fastest growing economies in the United States.
That's great.
Well, now that you two have gone from working one main community to opening up a business to work with many throughout Alabama, will there be an emphasis on rural communities? And if that's the case, how do you plan to help rural communities to affect and attract industry in Alabama?
Obviously, with my background, rural really has become my passion because there are so many opportunities and so many small communities in the state of Alabama and in the Southeast that just need that one project or just need something to be the catalyst to move their community forward. So I think one of my, I guess it's so cliche, but one of my favorite sayings is you don't know what you don't know. And there are oftentimes when you look at these smaller rural communities, they have leaders in roles in community development and elected officials who serve in multiple roles. So they're trying to scramble to do everything and be all things to all people. So I think what we can add to them is coming in and just providing that short-term coaching on what economic development is, and explain to them and show them the different resources that are available to them, whether it's incentives, whether it's grant programs, or anything, training programs for their workforce in their small communities. So just opening up, I guess, the world to some of these smaller communities is what I think that I'm pretty passionate about.
And you talked about training. What are some of the challenges that are really unique to a rural community, as, you know, aside from the urban communities that may have absolutely different needs and expectations?
Well, I think training-wise, that's why I think Alabama is so well positioned. The Alabama Community College System has 24 colleges spaced out amongst the state of Alabama. And those are positioned there to serve some of the smaller communities. And our chancellor and our board of trustees has really focused on making sure that training opportunities are available to any industry or any sector within a certain radius of those smaller campuses. And it may be, for one, like Lori said, food and beverage. Food and beverage was a successful project for Opelika and for Chambers County because we had access to water. Okay, not a lot of rural communities do have a large capacity for water. It may be a community that has access directly to the interstate or a major 4-lane highway. It could be a smaller community that has access to broadband that they just really don't know about. So making sure that all of those resources that are available to them and training those individuals in those small communities. I think, just from my perspective, a lot of companies that looked at us in Chambers County, we had a smaller workforce, but they knew we had a dedicated workforce. And sometimes quality over quantity is important when industries are looking.
Totally echoing what Valerie said. I mean, I think it's the quality of the workforce that really, because if you can get that core group and then build around that and then have the training opportunities that we have, I mean, I know that's what was helped us to be successful as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched on infrastructure as well. And in a rural community, that's a lot different, or can look a lot different than it does in a city or in a suburban area. Is aging infrastructure a problem in small communities? And what do you think can be done about that? And is it an ongoing issue?
Oh, that is a critical issue for us. So for Chambers County, Lynette and Valley, we are directly located on the Chattahoochee River, formerly textile community, where we had over 30,000 jobs in textiles back in the mid 80s. We lost all of those jobs, but because we had the river, we had multiple facilities that located along that way, and we were permitted to pull nearly 8 million gallons per day. And one of the greatest things that our leaders did was never to let that permit lapse. But with that capacity of water comes the ability to maintain the infrastructure that's there and to keep it upgraded and keep it going. You can't just let a water line sit dormant for months or years. So I think that's a challenge that a lot of smaller communities do face, that if they have lost an industry there and they have that infrastructure, maintaining it, keeping it up, but being visionary enough to know what resources they may have that other places don't have. So I think that's pretty important. And that was one of the reasons that Chambers County was successful in locating John Souls Foods, because we did have the water capacity there. We did have the capabilities to treat as well.
Well, and I think aging infrastructure is a challenge across the U.S. And I think that Alabama is really positioning itself very well to deal with this, because we're seeing investments in projects that ALDOT, Alabama Department of Transportation, is taking on for road and bridge projects. And you see that throughout the state right now. I think one of the things that Valerie and I would bring to a community is our ability to advocate for those type of improvements and projects for smaller communities.
So over the years, over these past several decades, it seems to me that elected officials have become more and more involved in economic development. And certainly it's always been local, but at the state level, we see now the Alabama legislature becoming more involved in monitoring economic development progress, return on investment, et cetera. And I consider you two to be very, politically engaged and savvy between you, and you keep your finger on the pulse at the state level. What are some of the recent programs that Alabama has enacted that you think has made a difference? And, I know we had the Alabama Jobs Act about 10 years ago. That really kick-started, I think, a lot of new programs. Tell us some of the programs that you all have been using to your advantage for these economic development projects around the state.
So I retired about 2 years ago, and they just launched the Seeds Act. And I was so jealous because it was such a phenomenal program to be able to offer communities that were either looking at property or developing property. And there's so many steps on having product and having it ready for business and industry. And I think the Alabama legislature and the governor's office and the team at Commerce understood that those parts of the puzzle needed to be filled in as you don't grow land anymore, so you may have to redevelop land. And that to me was a huge step in writing some of the sites and things like that the state needed to be able to provide more product for business and industry looking.
So give us a little bit of for those who don't know what the Seeds Act is, tell us just a little bit about what that was supposed to accomplish and has accomplished.
I'm going to defer to Lori on that one.
Well, I mean, I think the Seeds Act was established in order to develop product. I mean, I think the legislature, the governor, and Commerce really came together to formulate that program that realized that we were running out of sites in the state of Alabama. And so what that program does is encourages the local economic development groups and communities to establish new industrial parks or take a look at what they have to maybe redevelop. So I think there's two different aspects of it. There's funding to do studies, and then there's also an opportunity to help offset some of the costs to acquire property. So, I mean, I think that it was a game changer as far as especially some of the smaller rural communities that have, maybe have some land, but haven't had any incentive or additional help to develop those properties. Mm-hmm. So I think we see, and in partnership with our local utilities as well, too. They're the ones that kind of have helped to maybe identify some sites and then reaching out to the local communities to take advantage of the seeds program and establish some new product for the state.
That's helpful. Thank you. So in some of the projects you all have worked in these past few years, what are some of the state programs that you think have really made a difference? And tell us a little bit about the project itself that you all have worked on where it did make a big difference.
Well, the last project that I worked before I retired from Opelika was we were very fortunate to have a commitment from Miele, who is a German manufacturing that makes appliances. And they're going to be establishing their first U.S. location in Opelika. And we had a site that had some infrastructure needs, and we were able to get a commitment from Growing Alabama to address those infrastructure needs and offset that cost. I don't think we would have landed the project had we not been able to acquire that Growing Alabama commitment. I think it also really, and this is what we talked about with partnership and teamwork, it really showed the connection and the willingness for the state to work with the locals to put that piece together that was missing. And so I think that really, really made an impression on the company to see us working so closely together to, we found a problem, we found a solution, and I think that helped make it happen for us.
That's a great example. And congratulations on that project, by the way. So we have the legislature starting up in a few short weeks. If you had a wish list of anything that they could consider, do you have any thoughts along those lines, including, increasing the cap or the dollars that could be spent on a certain program, or changes to a program that you might think would be a good idea for this coming legislative session?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that we've had in the past when we've had our incentive programs, there's always been like a sunset, and then the commerce of the legislature and the governor has to come back and reestablish that. To me, I hope that the legislature is aware of how successful the game plan has been in providing those incentives to companies to locate in Alabama. Also, the SEEDS program and Growing Alabama have been very successful and have made significant difference in locating projects. So I would hope that the legislator, armed with that information, would be willing to kind of have a continuance of those programs and work with to make sure that people that are looking at Alabama know that that's going to continue and not have the worry that it might sunset within a certain period of time.
And I think that's where Lori and I come in and complement each other very well. I'm very fortunate to serve as the vice chairman of the Alabama Community College System and with the Board of Trustees. And those are appointed by the governor's office and confirmed by the legislature. So during that confirmation period, myself and Dust Rogers, who is also a practitioner of economic development, to me, that showed 3.5 years ago, that showed that they were really serious about taking workforce development and education and making sure that they bring all different types of perspectives to the board, and making sure that education and workforce development and our 2-year colleges work hand in hand to provide skills training. whether it be soft skills, whether it be adult education, whether it be working directly with the manufacturers. Lori and I are very fortunate to have Southern Union in our backyards. And we know with the president there, he came from private sector. And he knew actually he came from industrial. So he knew what he needed to make the Southern Union successful and answer the needs of businesses and industries. So with our 24 campuses spread out across the state, I think it's critically important that our legislature continues to focus on economic development incentives for infrastructure and to make sure that we provide training opportunities to potential clients and, importantly, existing industries and our residents of Alabama.
Well, that's a great way to wrap it up with a nice long wish list of things that you think can move things along. Thank you, ladies, so much for being with us today. You've seen Alabama through a lot of progress, so we wish you the best of luck with VaLor Strategies and move things forward for the coming years. So congratulations on the new venture, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And I do want to take this opportunity to thank you two personally for all that you all have done to help my career and our firm and economic development throughout the state. You two are the best, and really appreciate you all being here with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
So much, ladies.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on Project Catalyst. Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast, is a Maynard Nexon and NP Strategy production. To learn more about the podcast and subscribe, visit thecatalystpod.com or find us on your favorite podcast platform.